if I would take a bow in on consignment, my fee for consigning that bow has to match roughly the same profit margin as if I sold a new one.
Yep.
Because by me selling somebody else's bow that's hanging on my floor, I'm losing out on the money from selling a brand new one that's hanging next to it. And that means, okay, that money doesn't go towards paying my electrical bill or my insurance or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So you can overload yourself with trades and get into trouble, which a shop did here in Nebraska, and they just closed up. But, so here's the other trouble. Frank and I were talking right before we started the podcast. If you want to buy if you want to buy an elite bow, chances are you're going to buy it off Facebook. Elites are everywhere. The company has grown so fast and become so popular, those bows are everywhere. That's great for Elite. The bad news for Elite, have you seen what last year's bows are bringing now, used?
Yep.
They are worth pennies.
Yep.
Absolute pennies.
The market was flooded. Elite grew. And kudos, Levi Morgan played a huge part in that. And then, again, and then Real Wild came on board with Elite, and they grew again. And Elite makes one of those bows that just about anybody can shoot them. There's a select few depending on style, but they're just and the big, huge draw. And this is the draw that, admittedly, when I bought my 2014 Energy 35. I bought it brand new from Lancaster Archery in the shop, in the showroom, from Big Moose Whitmoyer. Shout out to Moose. He's moved out to Colorado now. He's still working for Lancaster, but he's out in Colorado now, making a life for him and his wife. And I bought that bow because it had that lifetime transferable warranty. I was like, man, this thing shoots amazing. I just can't. The warranty is amazing,
Yes.
Fast forward another year, bought a 2015 Victory 39, and now you go fast forward again, 2017. I'm still shooting both those bows right now, but because I love them and have no need to go elsewhere. But you go online, I have bought, as a matter of fact, I bought a 2015 E35 that I broke down and rebuilt for my wife, which you made the strings for.
Yes, sir.
I got that bow for $400.
Yeah, less than half price of what you paid for the new one.
That's correct. That's right. When I bought my new one, I paid, I think it was around $7-something, or $689 or $700. I think it was like maybe late 2014 when I bought it.
Yeah, right before the new stuff's going to come out, you'll see all the shops, knocking $100 off on upper-end bows, trying to move them before the new stuff comes out. But,
yeah.
That bow was a $700 to $800 bow most days.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward 2 years, roughly, and the bow's worth half. Now, the other problem is that bow in today, if you walked in there and bought that new Elite today, whichever model, tomorrow it's worth 60%. And it's not just Elite. It is bows across the industry. There's a select few that are holding value. Most of the new carbon bows from Hoyt and PSE, most of those are hanging what I would consider fairly strong for a used market.
Mm-hmm.
Matthews had a lot of success with the Z7 Extreme series.
Yes.
That bow held almost new value for 3 years.
Wow.
Blew my mind. And some of the new Matthews stuff is holding it too. There's some of the TRX and the Howland comps are hanging over $1,000 used. But oh my, I don't know. Anyway, so what that led to was us looking at financials of our two companies and said, what happens on a day-to-day basis, what happens on a monthly basis, a quarterly, and a yearly. And what we discovered was 75% of the year, the string company was supporting the bow shop.
Wow.
Meaning it was making sure that the payments to suppliers were made, whether it was PSE or Bear or Easton or whoever. All those companies have programs, we call them, to try to help dealers. Most dealers aren't going to pull out their checkbook and write a check for $25,000 for the New Year's bows. Now, the disadvantage is most companies, that won't get you very far anymore. Elite redid their pricing structure this year, and it's pretty rough on some of the other shops that buy strings from me were talking about it. And I said, man, that just suddenly took a big jump when we already, carry Gold Tier and Matthews and Hoyt, and then Elite bumped theirs a bunch, and it happens. But those kind of bumps are another thing that drowns the small shop. You're $25,000 to $30,000 to be an Elite Silver Tier dealer.
That's
so,
yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is. That's a huge investment, especially if you're a new business owner or trying to get started, which is it's a little bit of a situation like that my wife and I are in right now, because we're we have some really positive things going for us where we're at, and while we have some, here's the difference for what our situation is we have some local shops, but they're not that big. I'm literally 10 minutes from a Cabela's,
right.
But they're a big box store, and we have another shop that's a pretty decent little shop that's about 15-20 minutes from us, and they sell Elite, they sell Hoyt, they sell Matthews, they sell all your top tier bow companies, but they don't have an indoor range, and they're not really a target or competition oriented bow company.
Yep.
And then I have Lancaster, who isn't that far away either. So you always have that situation, but Lancaster is more of it's kind of a positive being so close to Rob and company down there, because just because we're in, like I said, we're in a little bit of a hub right here. Just happened to be in my specific area, my county area, where archery really fell off. And I've worked for 3 years trying to change that on a local level with kids and youth classes and stuff like that, and it's really finally starting to happen. So, and I've bought used bows online, so it's just one of those things where it's like a double-edged sword, I guess you would say, Andy.
It is. It's horrible. So, long story short, what happened is after we went through all this, and we're looking at the financials for the last, I think it was 3 years that we've really been paying more attention to it. And I said, okay, we looked at gross profits and net profits in different times of the year. And what we found is that, like I said, 75% of the time, string sales were supporting the bow shop, meaning paying for bows to be on the shelf, paying for arrows to be on the shelf, all those kinds of things. And then, you have a 3-month period where, hey, look, we sold a bunch of bows and this and that. Well, that really didn't make up for what the string business had to put into the bow side. And a lot of that has to do with that used bow market, especially where I live, where I am in Nebraska, where we don't have as heavy of archery as you do out east. So this year and just recently, probably 2, maybe 3 months, Frank, you and I have talked, we closed the bow shop side of it.
Yes, that's right.
So, and there were some other things that played into that. Some of the bigger shops in our state, even though we really only have one that's, quote, full-time, even though a good friend of mine that owns one a little over an hour away, he's as full-time as I would deem. His business hours are about 6 hours per day, every day. Plus, if you've ever owned a shop, you might be open for 6 hours, but you're in there for 12. Fixing people's bows after hours, and you get busy and building arrows and whatever. So some of those shops that really sold a lot more bows than I did and had a bigger clientele, most of them had seen my strings, had installed them, whatever, but it was hard for them to say, okay, we want to buy Dynamic Custom Strings, but he's also selling bows and is, quote, competition.
Yep.
So there was a sit down and some meetings, and got some string sets into their hands that nobody knew existed, and I agreed that I will give up the bow side because it's not financially making sense anymore, and in return those shops are buying more and more strings from us every day. So versus me getting frustrated seeing all the used bows for sale for 50% of what they were last year, and me going, geez, how do I compete with that? That's a 2016 for half price, and that's still a current production bow for 2017, and I have one sitting on the shelf, and it's $1,000, and I can buy last year's model for $500. Which one are you going to buy?
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I go into my next thought, we got about 3.5 minutes here, and we'll continue once we hit that mark, I'll let you know, and we'll just continue a part 2. But, and the other side of that, and here maybe this is me playing a little bit of a devil's advocate with this. The other part about that is, yeah, you made the decision, you decided to close the bow shop side of the company down, continue with the strings, but that also, has that allowed you to concentrate more of your business then on Facebook, online, and targeting and maybe changing your marketing strategy a little bit to work with these social media groups, with OAC, with people like myself who has an archery program and has a bunch of kids and adults all in my circle. I mean, has that been a transition for you?
Yeah, it really has. One example is a friend of mine 2 hours away. They were able to start a NASP program, an Archery in the Schools program, in his hometown. They've never had it before. This was their first year. And they had a kid qualify for nationals in Kentucky, I think is where they went.
Yeah, that's right.
There is no way, if I was trying to sell bows and build arrows and build strings and whatever, I couldn't have been any help to that yet, or to that program. There's no way I could. It's just too much. So by being able to focus on just the string side of it, I can keep a regular schedule. I have a schedule that's today is what we call layup day, and we lay up all the orders that we have at the moment, and they all go through stretchers, and they go through processes. So I can stay with that, but I can keep it in a time frame that's orchestrated, which allows me to focus on other aspects of it, like helping kids, helping support groups, things like OAC, and having a little bit of a family life, honestly, and that makes Mom happy. So it's been a huge thing. A little scary at first that we've been selling bows almost 10 years, and look, we're not going to sell bows anymore. So that was a little scary, but it's really allowed us to focus more on, when you guys used to tag us in a post about strings, I try, people usually just tag me, not always the company, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But so if they tag me and not the company, I try to jump on and, post a link to our Facebook page or post our website.
Yeah.
Before there was no way I could accomplish that. No way. Because I have bows that need ordered, and I have arrows, and I got to do this. It was just chaos.
Yeah, and that is part of how social media works, and kind of the importance of working with people who know their way around the marketing side of social media. That's for sure.